Hi, this is Professor George Lees speaking from his hometown Kelso, Scotland on the 9th of October 2014. I'm going to talk about the global menace that is the global media, and I'm going to focus on the Murdoch family because they are the people that largely globalized it in the recent eras. As you know already from recent broadcasts, the world is owned by the moneylenders and the Rothschilds dynasty, and their news agency has long been the Reuters organisations. The Thompson twins were involved, and as you'll hear later on, the Thompson twins were very active when Murdoch turned his attention on the British media and then eventually flitted across the Atlantic to take over the Fox networks and the legendary propagandists that are the Zionist movement in America. So Murdoch is a veteran, he's a very experienced player, and I just want to let you hear some of the news. 2 days ago I made a video with John Paterson on the 9/11 terror event that led to the bringing down of the Twin Towers and the involvement of the little red doll that was Princess Fergie's, and it was a scam about the Schindler's List film Kristallnacht and a joke about the death of 3,000 Gentiles on a day when the Jews that worked in the Twin Towers on global trade delegations were told to stay home, and Prince Andrew, who had been appointed as the head of the British trade delegation and had long been involved in army operations, both he and Fergie were in the town that day, and that's relatively unimportant. But what I want you to hear is the legacy of planting fraudulent criminals in the media, and I'm going to play a series of clips on what happens to local media in a tiny country like Scotland, where everything is blessedly peaceful. The day after we made that little red announcement that was state-sponsored terror involving royals right at the top of the tree, and cover-ups using Mike Tyndall as a royal wedding vent when the Tyndall airbase was used by the US and Canadian Air Forces, the day that they ran the drill pretending to be practicing for what actually occurred that day, sponsored by Dick Cheney and the Bush dynasty, and entirely so that America and the UK, with NATO's armies behind them without any contention, could sweep into Iraq and then Afghanistan and take control of the central banks there. So the following morning, within 12 hours of us making the videos, Little Red was on Scottish News. Sorry, it's not keen to play. Oh, here we go.
Long hauling, because that's what makes them the most money. Is that a cynical view?
This is Radio Scotland, 24 hours after the posting of the Little Red story.
London to international markets, and that was one of the aspects that were important to us. So, what the motivations are of the individual airline companies aren't so much of interest. It's being able to make that longer connectivity through the London hub, which is important for Scottish business.
Well, and of course that's been withdrawn with this service going. Richard Branson says the odds were stacked against the company. He says, sadly, we just couldn't attract enough corporate business on these routes. I suppose for your members and other business people in Scotland, the message with all of these things is use it or lose it.
No, absolutely. And
this is about a company called Little Red in the airline, but we'll move straight on to the main news items that day, which were summarised between those specialised bulletins.
there are two.
This is Reporting Scotland, Radio Scotland. This is the morning's bolus of news. Nothing is about what is happening in Scotland. It is all about trying to spark hatred for other nations so that these criminals in the financial sector can thrive and continue to cheat the world.
The Kurdish part of Syria with some autonomy, but it's been a de facto autonomy, nothing that's been officially recognized. So we need to differentiate between the two Kurdish areas that we're talking about.
But do we need actually maybe to set all of that aside and for Kurds?
Just 2 weeks ago we revealed how the Kurd Zahawi steals from Kurdistan and runs his businesses from the Parliament building.
From ISIS's point of view, Syria, Iraq, what does that mean? They've already taken a third of Syria, they've taken a third of Iraqi territory, and they want to expand way beyond those borders. So I do think that these borders are not recognized by ISIS. We need to respond in an appropriate way, and by we, I mean all of us. I don't think it should be just Turkey. Where are the other 60 members of this international coalition?
You're travelling to Scotland to talk to MSPs at Holyrood. What is your message to them?
My message is 2 or 3 things really. First, I think it's important that the people, the Parliament and the government of Scotland have a clear understanding of what ISIS means, of the threat that they pose to not only the people of Kurdistan and Iraq and Syria, but to all of us in the Middle East, and therefore by extension to British interests. There are key British interests, including Scottish interests, in the Middle East, and I think it's important that people understand that, especially now that Britain has engaged in airstrikes, and hopefully that will continue. The other point that
so they want the violence to continue so the financial crimes can be covered up. Just in case you don't get the picture, this is the other type of healthcare diversion that they throw at you, as the UN and the World Health Organization tries its best to get the numbers down. It is absolutely ruthless. Sorry, this is about the EBola and also the little red diversions at the summary period in the news. Because I'm under surveillance, it's very easy for them to change the script, but I had already listened to almost 90 minutes of the little red airplane diversions and the minor issues involving Richard Branson, who is a national traitor who works and runs his national contracts from the tax havens, and he is also the drug czar. Can't get this one to open for some reason. Oh, here we go.
To Spain with the virus and later died. She is the first person in the current outbreak to contract the disease outside West Africa, where it's known to have killed nearly 3,500 people. In Sierra Leone, experts say they need more doctors and nurses to help. Dr. Oliver Johnson from the UK-based King's Health Partners has been working on the outbreak in the capital Freetown since it began.
King's Health Partners, everything has a royal affiliation if it's fatal.
It can't be possible that there could be this many deaths. Now 20,000 seems like nothing. And suddenly people are talking about, worst case scenario, more than 1 million deaths in West Africa, which is just, for those of us who thought at the beginning maybe this would be 100 or 200 cases, it's mind-blowing. We could end up seeing more cases a day than we have seen in total in the last 6 months.
There have been more exchanges of fire overnight in the streets of the Syrian town of Kobani as Kurdish forces try to prevent it falling to Islamic State militants. The jihadists are pushing into the town from the east, and hundreds of civilians have been seen fleeing towards the nearby border with Turkey. Paul Adams reports from the Turkish side of the border.
The situation in Kobani early this morning seems much quieter. Eyewitnesses right on the border speak of sporadic gunfire, but nothing like yesterday's relentless confrontations. But it seems inevitable that Kobani is in for another day of street fighting. Sources inside the city say this is now taking place in 3 separate areas as Islamic State fighters close in from several directions.
So you get the picture? That's within 24 hours of us revealing the royal involvement in the killing of 3,000 plus people to take the world to war, to sequester central banks that were not already ours, and Scotland plays its full role in pretending that the world is a threatening place. The greedy batards are just in the studios behind the cameras, but as they now know God is on our side, and as they see Lord Paterson, George Alagaya and all of those reporters that are quislings and are traitors to their nation being interned in the ITU or the cemetery, then they begin to quake at the knees, and it will all stop really soon. Anyway, I just want you to know that Scotland is a peaceful and innocent place, and it's a beautiful place to visit. There is nothing to be afraid of apart from the people that inhabit the political buildings. That includes the civil servants, decent and upstanding. All of those have had their pay frozen for 5 years as their energy bills rise 20% per annum because of the corruption and the penetration of our markets and our nationalised industries by thieves from overseas. Bye bye.